Hey guys, welcome back to the MCU HQ, and here's my spoiler review for Thor Love and Thunder. If you have not yet seen the movie, I will be going over some of the big things that happen in the movie, so if you want to get spoiled or you just don't care, welcome. But if you have not seen it yet, you don't want to get spoiled, do yourself a favor and get out of this video, or else you're going to get all the big spoilers for the movie. So this will not be a direct play-by-play of every scene, just some of the things I feel like talking about, although coincidentally, a lot of it will feel like a play-by-play, because there's a lot I want to talk about. There's a lot to unpack in this very interesting film. Alright, so the first thing I want to mention is the opening with gore. It was nuts, because this movie starts, it's just like abruptly starts, like they played the IMAX thing. You know, they go trailers, then they don't ruin the movie, enjoy the movie, Nicole Kidman, then I was in IMAX here, so they played the IMAX thing, and the second ended, boom, we're in the middle of a desert, and it's like on the ground. I'm like, did the movie start? Is this something else? But that pans up, it's like, oh, okay, this is Christian Bale, this is the start of the movie. And I feel this movie did start strong. It started off in a cool way. He's praying to the gods, yada yada, his daughter dies, it's really bleak, it's really dark, and then there's that one guy who I can't remember who's just an ass, and like these two characters are from two different movies, because you've got him like, look at this guy, it's funny, then you've got Christian Bale just acting his heart out, and then the Necrosword like comes to him, and I'm pretty sure the Necrosword made Gore evil, like the Necrosword like wanted him. Because once they break the Necrosword at the end, Gore's good again. Or he's not good again, but he like no longer feels like killing gods. He's just laying there. So I don't know if that's because he had known he lost or because the Necrosword was doing it. But either way, I wish they could have just made Gore a bad guy, whatever. So he kills that god. He's like, this is my vow. All gods will die. Yeah. So that was cool. And then I respected something the movie did. They give like a 3-minute exposition scene. Korg tells a story to all those kids on that one planet of the story of Thor. And we see Thor all the way up through Endgame, and it's just breaking it down for us. So if you missed any of those movies, you are officially caught up and you don't need to watch anything. That was pretty neat. And then there's that opening battle, which was fun. It was weird though that he destroyed that building and didn't really care, because that seems like something that Thor pre-being worthy would have done. But I don't know, I guess Thor's back to doing that now. That's it, I did enjoy the battle. I like the bit of banter between Thor and Star-Lord where like Star-Lord kind of respects Thor and Thor's giving his speech and Star-Lord's like talking along with it. Like, you know, Thor gives this on every single planet. And there was something fun that happened when he pulled Stormbreaker out of the ground and it was growing roots because the handle's a tree. And Star-Lord says in the opening fight, or after the fight, he's like, you know, for a guy who's really, or like thousands of years old, yada yada, even though he's only like 1,505 at this point, he's like, for someone who's thousands of years old, you sure seem to not know what you're supposed to do. And he's going on of, you know, look into the eyes of the people that you love, and he proposes this idea. He's the one who first proposes the love idea of this movie. And so the Guardians aren't just there for the sake of being there. They actually are relevant. They do, you know, do something important. Star-Lord proposes that idea that Thor keeps with him throughout the movie. So there's a reason to have the Guardians in this movie instead of just being a connective tissue between Endgame and Love and Thunder. It also works because the Guardians are huge on found family and finding these people that you love among misfits. And that's sort of what Thor has to do in this movie. But you know, they get the goats, that I think they'd use the goats. It's funny because the goats aren't in it much, but I'm like, wow. What I felt like Korg, like the 8th time I heard the goats scream, I was like, they sure do scream a lot, don't they? I did kind of get sick of the goats. They were fun for the first little bit. I did eventually get sick of the goats, and I was ready for them to go. I did find it hilarious when they went bam right into that rock, and the ship was just still floating there because like the gravity field or something was all weird. That was funny. But on the ship, we get like really my first big issue with the movie. It's that there's a rule you try to stick to for filmmaking, which is show don't tell. Now there are cases where you have to tell, but in some instances, in most instances, you should show more than you can tell, because film's a visual medium. If I want something that told me, I would read a book. If I'm looking for something that shows me, I'm going to a movie. And so the fact that all of Gorr's kills are a news broadcast on the Benatar does not vibe with me. We only see him kill one god on screen, and it's not even that cool of a god. That giant white animal thing, the dinosaur-looking ass, I want to know how Gorr killed that thing. Why can't I see how Gorr killed that thing? I wanted to see the fight with Lady Sif. Like, there's so many things that would have helped to flesh out Gorr's character more, but no. We see him kill that one guy. That god was stupid. And then we see him retreat after he can't take out either of the Thors. Valkyrie survives Gorr. Like, he does not do the damage we should have seen him do. We only see one person butchered on screen from a character whose name is the God Butcher. And that does not sit right with me. And speaking of Lady Sif, like I mentioned before, what a waste of Jaime Alexander. They got her back for this one. Now, I'm assuming she'll be in Thor 5 in a prominent role, because they're definitely doing Thor 5, but they bring her back, and she's missing an arm, and then this is where they set the idea, to go to Valhalla, you have to die in battle, we'll get back to that later, and then they bring her to the infirmary back on Asgard, and at the end of the movie, she's got one arm training new warriors. That's all she's in this movie for. She doesn't do anything in this movie, and I feel like she should have. Like, you have Lady Sif. She's a fan favorite character. People love Lady Sif. Use Lady Sif. Everyone was wondering after Ragnarok, they're like, where's Lady Sif? She shows up several times in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. People love it. Use her. Use your characters. Don't just waste them. And this is something the beginning exposition did too. When Korg was narrating Thor's life, they show the deaths of the Warriors 3, and Korg's like, oh yeah, that guy, and that guy, and that guy. I'm like, why are you disgracing so many of these characters? Like, you have cool characters. Use them. Hell, I'm surprised that they didn't just kill Sif off. They might as well have. Would have actually impacted the story more, because we would have seen Gorr kill a character that we know of. And from there, then it goes to Jane, and we see what Jane's been up to. She's in the hospital undergoing chemotherapy because she has stage 4 cancer, which is the highest stage. And it is cool to see the other human characters show up. We see Darcy's there for a couple minutes. They got Kat Dennings back. Eric Selvig's on a little FaceTime call with Jane, and they're trying to do some blood tests and stuff. It was nice to see those guys come back too, just as a little bit of connective tissue and not just make, Jane suffering alone. But when science doesn't work, she resorts to magic, which is a cool callback to the first Thor of science and magic and yada yada. And so she goes to New Asgard. And this is where we get some plot holes. I said in my non-spoiler review, there's a lot of plot holes that Mjolnir opens up in this movie. Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. So, Mjolnir senses Jane's presence, and Mjolnir reassembles itself and gives itself to Jane. Because Thor, in the flashbacks, they show the flashbacks to their relationship and how they broke up. And Thor sees Jane working on something, and he's talking to Mjolnir, and he treats his weapons like pets in this movie. It's really weird. Like, he's scratching Stormbreaker, he gives Stormbreaker a beer, he refers to it like X-Hammer, like they went through a breakup too, and he says to Mjolnir, promise me you'll always protect her. And that shows the runes show up on Mjolnir, just like it did when Odin put the spell on it, so Thor put another spell on it, so now Mjolnir is bound to always protect Jane. And so in the presence of Jane, Mjolnir reassembles itself. But the question has to be asked, if Mjolnir can reassemble itself, why did Thor need to make Stormbreaker? Because all he would have had to do was just, and Mjolnir could bring back together. What's the existence of what's the point of the existence of Stormbreaker? Also, if when Thor tried to call Mjolnir on Sakaar, it sounded like the energy was going out when it should have, Mjolnir eventually would have made its way to Thor. It was just really weird, and I was wondering that like the entire movie. I was like, why couldn't Thor just reassemble this thing if he just summoned Mjolnir? Because that's what Jane did, and it worked. Also, if Mjolnir is bound to protect Jane, why was Mjolnir slowly killing Jane? Doesn't seem like it was protecting Jane very much. But then, Stormbreaker was very weird. So, for some reason, they decided to make the weapons, like, sentient. Or they decided to make Stormbreaker sentient. Mjolnir's just kind of Mjolnir. But Stormbreaker is sentient. I feel like they saw Doctor Strange's cloak and they're like, oh, people love that, and they did it to Stormbreaker. Doesn't work for everything, okay? So Stormbreaker is jealous. Thor tries to call Mjolnir. Stormbreaker flies over it. Stormbreaker has the mentality of a guy giving Thor a dirty look. And then Thor tries to lift Mjolnir, and you see Stormbreaker like peek into frame and look at Thor. And then Stormbreaker gets pissed and won't summon the Bifrost. I'm like, why the hell's the axe sentient? But the axe being sentient, I'm like, whatever, I can put it behind me. But what doesn't make sense to me is when Gorr takes Stormbreaker from Thor, plants it at the gates of eternity, and turns on the Bifrost. Because if Stormbreaker can deactivate itself, why did it keep opening the Bifrost? And was it because those weird shadow hands were holding it? Maybe, but the movie doesn't articulate that, so as far as I know, Stormbreaker willingly led a guy who wants to kill all the gods to the one guy who can let him kill all the gods. And Thor wielded Stormbreaker and Mjolnir in Endgame. Why was Stormbreaker not pissed off then? It opens up a whole thing of plot holes, but those aren't the only two weapons that do it. And it really bothers me that one Thor movie ago, he didn't need a weapon, and now he's very reliant on a weapon, because he's like, we need Zeus's lightning bolt, it's the key to stopping Gorr. We never see this. I don't know exactly why it was so helpful, but they get the lightning bolt. Well, Zeus throws the lightning bolt at Korg, okay? Korg survives it, because his face is the only thing that's alive. This was such a stupid joke. I wished they had just killed Korg, because I was very annoyed by the character at this point. It sucks that they made me hate Korg, but I do, and I wish he would have stayed dead. Korg survived. Gorr stabs Valkyrie with the lightning bolt. Valkyrie survives. Thor, upon seeing Korg get hit with the lightning bolt, catches the lightning bolt, throws it directly through Zeus's chest, and Zeus survives. So if everyone can Obi-Wan Kenobi survive a stab, why is the lightning bolt so important? It's established to be the most powerful weapon, but we never really get to see that demonstrated. I mean, Thor does use it to give all the kids powers, but he says the powers of Thor, not the powers of Zeus. So I don't know why they all had yellow lightning. I guess it is what it is, but when Thor was fighting Gorr at the end, there was no special abilities the lightning bolt granted him. So the lightning bolt really didn't matter in the long run. But on this journey, it's a lot of Thor and Jane getting to interact. I gotta say, the chemistry between them was great. That scene on the boat was their best scene, where they're talking about, still loving each other, and Jane breaks it to Thor that she has cancer, and then the kiss and all that. That was good. I think that was a good scene. It was then ruined by Korg singing. Because for some reason they had to ruin almost every scene with a joke. And it's Korg's face propped up on the side of the boat, and Valkyrie's holding a microphone to him, and she just looks all depressed, and Korg's singing into the mic, and I was like, what the hell are we doing in this movie? The connection between Jane and Gorr that I was referring to in my non-spoiler review that was really good is the effect their weapons are having on them. So we learn that the Necro Sword is corrupting Gorr, and it's eventually going to kill him. And that's the exact same thing happening with Mjolnir. Mjolnir is corrupting Jane more. It's making it harder for her to fight off the cancer, so it will eventually kill her. And I loved that connection between the two of them where they are in this exact same position. And I think this might actually happen with the Ebony Blade when Dane Whitman picks it up. I think it might slowly corrupt him. That's my guess. But so yeah, Necrosword Mjolnir corrupting the people, so at the end when they're at eternity and they go through the gates, Gorr's death and Jane's death are mirrors of each other. And this was such a great moment of storytelling. So you have both of them dying. You have Thor holding Jane. She's about to die. She's starting to fade away. And then you have Gorr's daughter, because Thor's like, why don't you just wish for your kid back instead of the death of all the gods? He's like, yeah, good point. So he does. And his daughter comes back and she's holding him as he's dying, and their two deaths are mirrors of each other. It's the two cancer patients are dying at the same time, and they both just look sickly, both are dying, and boom, they're gone. And then in that moment of both of them losing everything, of Thor and Gorr's daughter both losing everything, they then find new love in each other. That was phenomenal. And then we get the ending of the movie, which I think was pretty strong, I gotta say. The way this... See, I like the way the story ends. A lot of people don't. I personally like it. Could it have been better? Yeah, it could have been better. But it's not bad. It's definitely one of the better parts of the movie. But the ending is badass. Because we've got, Valkyrie training a whole new race of warriors. Sif training a new race of warriors. Korg is back. Korg and this other dude are making a baby. So, like, that's cool. But what I thought was really cool was the very end where you have Thor and his now adopted daughter, played by Chris Hemsworth's actual daughter, and Thor's making breakfast. He's like, all right, put your boots on, get ready, all that. She shoots laser beams at the pan. The pan's ruined now. It's like the dynamic between them is great. The chemistry's great, probably because it's Chris Hemsworth's actual kid, and it seems like he's taking her to school on New Asgard or something, but no, they're on a completely different planet, and they're in this little mobile house, or I guess, this little flying house, and they're about to go fight something. There's a little war going on this planet. They're about to go settle this dispute. And so he's like, the striped ones are on our side. He gives her Stormbreaker, he holds Mjolnir. Now they have both weapons, and they jump into battle. And at the very end, I couldn't help but smile, because Korg's narrating the end, and he says, to those who know them best, they're known as Love and Thunder. And that's when it ends. And the new meaning it gives to that title, that Love and Thunder refers to Thor and Thor's adopted daughter. I loved that. I loved the last 25-30 minutes of this movie. Actually, no. I loved everything starting from the Shadow Realm. When they're at the Shadow Realm to the end of the movie, I love that. Actually, love's a strong word. I really like that. Everything before it, I really did not like. And we get 2 post-credit scenes, and people said these are the 2 coolest post-credit scenes in years. Not really. I guess, actually, from a comic standpoint, the first one's cool, because Zeus is alive, which really irritated me, and he's talking to a guy. He's like, we gotta be cool again. We were disrespected, whatever he said. Can you go kill Thor? And then Hercules is like, yes, father. And I'm like, okay, so Hercules is going to be in the 5th one, and we're going to have, like, Thor as he is now, defeating what Thor essentially was originally, and I'm sure that'll be the last Thor adventure. But, yeah, I mean, it was cool. I don't think it was as exciting as people said it was. And then the second one was Jane entering Valhalla, and Heimdall's there. He's like, so you're dead? I'm like, what the fuck are we making a joke right now? And she's like, yeah, I guess I am. And he's like, it's good to see you. Welcome to Valhalla. We see Valhalla, and that's where the movie ends. But I have one issue. Jane didn't die in battle. Jane died after the battle. And she died after Gore was no longer the villain. Gore had been defeated. Gore's daughter was back. The fight was over. Jane should not have been able to go to Valhalla. But alas, here we are. And I think her entering Valhalla should have been in the main movie, not a post-credit scene. But it is what it is. Right, that's it. Those are just the big things from Love and Thunder I wanted to talk about here. I will be talking about this movie a lot more, because I'm sure I'll eventually see it again. Maybe have a spoiler talk part 2. I have a ranking of all the Thor movies. That'll be fun. Or it's not up yet. It will be up in a day or 2. So stay tuned for all of that. Once again, what were your thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, leave a like on this video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCHQ. That's going to be it. Have a great day, guys.